The impact of the life and work of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. on this nation cannot be overstated. Carolee McGrath sat down with Sam Bradley, Tony Bass, and J.B. Bradley II of the Pan-African Historical Museum USA to discuss the effect that Dr. King had on their lives and on the lives of others in this region.
I was 16 years old, and so I was like just beginning high school, a technical high school. And it was a very traumatizing time, and certainly an enlightening period. And consequently, just like across the country, there was a riot here in Springfield. And I remember one thing, is that when the riot broke out, I had to find my brother because I could not go home without him. That was just the discipline in our family, is that we always took care of each other, our brothers, and being so young and being caught up in such a violent turmoil situation where not only were all the police dispatched, but also the National Guard. And it was surreal to see the ramifications where the entire State Street was shut down. And as a young child, growing up, I was aware of problems, but not until an incident happened when I was maybe about 7 or 8. And there was a large department store in our neighborhood called King's Department Store. And I remember going in to buy a baseball. And sometimes you could feel the presence of someone or something, so a security guard had his eyes on me and so forth, which I didn't mind. But when I got to the register to pay for the baseball, he was patting me down as I was purchasing the baseball. And that's when it first clicked. And so, it wasn't again until my father, who was from Alabama, took the family back to see his family. As children, my brother and myself, we actually encountered what racism really was all about when we stopped at a gas station, and it was so hot, and my brother and I, we saw the water fountain, and we jumped out the car to run to it, and my father screamed and yelled at us to stop. And we did, because my father had this booming voice, so it was intimidating. But the reason why he told us to stop was because we saw the signs for whites only. And so from that point on, I finally got it, understood that we are in a very tumultuous time in our history. And so, like I say, that as I got older, and my ambition was to go to college, and like I say, after Dr. Martin Luther King was killed, everything just changed for me. And just seeing some of the other things that happened, to be a quick story. When John F. Kennedy was killed in 1963, that was such an impactful moment that I remember to this day how it was in November. It was a kind of nice day, November 22nd, actually. And I was watching TV, and the news came on. President Kennedy was just assassinated or shot. I ran outside because my father was working on his car. I ran out and said, Dad, the president just got shot. He came running in the house to watch the news program as well, because he was just as much of a symbol for equal rights as Dr. King was for us at that time.
Sam, tell me a little bit about your mom's encounter with Dr. King when she was still expecting you. Well,
my mother, she was basically in King Street, South Carolina, and she had a job part-time working at this local college called Tomlinson campus. And so that day in '66, Dr. King was coming down to speak to the city. My mother's job was to make sure that Dr. King and his entourage, they were all set up, everything on the stage is properly kept, and to get them some water. And my mother's Dr. Reverend Ella Busby, and she went to him and said, Dr. King, why are you doing this? Why are you putting your life on the line? And she was very pregnant at the time. And so Dr. King reached out, grabbed her belly, and said, "I'm doing this for your child, for him to have a better life, a better future than we have now." And so that's what happened.
And as a young adult to hear that story, whenever that story, maybe you were told when you were little, but as you get older, you kind of understand the impact of what was said.
Yes, and when I got of age, and my mother did tell me the story, Dr. King, he immediately became my hero. I too tried to do things mimicking Dr. King. I'm in the same fraternity as he is, Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity, and but it was good. So anytime I think of why did Dr. King came to this world, and I always tell people he was a bright shining light for the dark areas and dark spaces of injustice, and once again, because of segregation, discrimination, he helped us out with voter rights, and so that's what made me look up to Dr. King, because I love what he did and I love what he stands for.
Now, JB, you're JB the second, JB Bradley the second. Your father is a famous photographer. Tell me a little bit about his experiences and some of the memories that he shared with you.
He came here in about the 40s, and he worked for probably 5 or 6 of the most wealthy families in the world, the Gettys, the Rockefellers. And when he came here on assignment with one of them bringing him, he saw Springfield and he said, "This would be a great place to raise my family." That was in the 40s. And from there, he had his camera with him and he never put it down. When he was here, doing his business, he worked full time at the Springfield Armory, but he always came home. He might take a nap, and he really covered a lot of the nightlife. But anything going on, whether, like I said, political, family, the picnic, and he branched out from there, and anywhere within 100, 200 miles, you could find my dad.
And your dad traveled with Dr. King when he was in Springfield and also in Boston. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, my dad went on to be on assignment for him. And in Boston, one picture we briefly looked at, something actually had broke out at that time. So they were actually escorting him quickly away. The March on Washington, he was there, and he relates a great story about that, how he still was not officially led up. There were some other photographers from, I guess, the D.C. area or whatever that was assigned, but everybody was up on the podium, and he was close enough that at one point, I think Mrs. King, because in that instance, they were all wearing the big straw cowboy hats, and he had that hat. And he said he was there, thinking and praying which way he could get up and get these photos. And he says, all at once, he says, Mrs. King looked over and told security, bring him up. And he was in the bird's eye vantage point from there to get all kind of photos, which I think I explained to you. A lot of those are on negative. So I didn't have that available to even begin to say, if I had time, look at this. But he was with Dr. King a number of times.
Now, all three of you are involved with Famosa.
Yes.
And obviously, it's a beautiful, rich history of African-American history in Springfield, and I know that you just had a grand reopening.
Yes.
You have a big event coming up at the end of February.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about that event and how you continue to try, to advance that dream and legacy.
We decided to do next month. It's called on the 29th, and we have a thing called Say It Loud. And we're going to be focusing on the Black Power movement and focus on the Black Panthers and everything as far as civil rights is concerned. Say It Loud event. And that's on, once again, February 29th. We're going to have people talking music, dancing, singing. So it's going to be wonderful.